What's going on, everyone? Come on in the room. Listen, I want you to like, love, and share this broadcast, but also tag three people in so we can have this conversation. I am deeply perplexed, I should say, about the events of the past few weeks. This has always been something that is always something that's top of mind with me. You guys, if you've followed me any length of time, you know that I address these issues. First of all, welcome to the Kingdom Conversations podcast. This is a podcast. It's going to be a little bit different tonight. But you do know that on the Kingdom Conversations podcast, we talk about everything as it relates to the kingdom of God, but also the world that we're living in. And I believe in being relevant and discussing the issues that are plaguing us, discussing the issues that we're dealing with in society today. And so, listen, I'm going to open it up. If anybody wants to join me tonight, just let me know in the comment section that you want to come on live. And if you have a camera and you're able to, you have a microphone on your laptop or your computer, your phone, you're able to come on live. Let me know that. I'll bring everybody on live tonight. Again, this is an unscripted, to a degree, an unscripted podcast tonight. So I just wanted to come on. I had some other stuff I was going to actually talk about, but I really want to deal with this whole issue that we're dealing with now with gun control, with these mass murders, these mass shootings that we've experienced in the last week or so, and what our response should be. We have to get to a place where we are doing what's necessary to make sure that especially our children are safe. That is one of the main things, the main goals of society, or even as parents should be, is making sure that our children are as safe as possible, that we keep them from hurt, harm, and danger as much as we possibly can. And I believe that we are in a situation now, we're in a time period. Let me make sure this is, okay, there we go. We're in a time period right now where that's vitally important, where we have parents that feel like they can't protect their children, and they don't see anybody else trying to protect their children. It's just sad to me for us to be able to experience what we've experienced today. I mean, it's just crazy. Last week was very, very unbearable. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what our response should be in that regard as well. But today, to have somebody, an adult, 18 years old, considered of adult age, to go to an elementary school and just unload on kids, helpless kids that cannot help themselves, cannot protect themselves, and even the teacher that passed away or what have you. And I believe the count now, I think I just saw the count now is 18 lives that have been lost through this senseless act. And we have to get to a place where we stop becoming numb to it. Now we've gotten to a place where we're numb to the things that happen in this world. We're numb to the things that happen in society. And I'm going to really deal with, let me go to here with the comments or what have you. And really deal with some of the things that we're dealing with. I mean, school shootings really happening. It's just crazy to me that we are dealing with all that we're dealing with. And yet we have politicians that are sitting on their hind parts and won't vote on something that 90% of Americans are in agreement with. Background checks, are in agreement with saying, okay, we're not going to sell a gun to an individual unless they have a background check, unless it's a thorough background check. Where are we at in society where your power, your political power, means more to you than the life of a child, means more to you than the life of a human being, means more to you than an African American. It means more to you than an Asian American. What have we gotten to the place of that we no longer feel humanity? We no longer feel empathy towards the human race. Y'all, I'm so beyond these politicians. I'm so beyond the government feeling like they're numb to this. Now it's all about power. It's all about money, and they don't release that. I got a clip I'm going to show later on dealing with this as it relates to Steve Kerr. He is the coach of the Golden State Warriors, and even him, even he is at the point of saying enough is enough. Y'all saw that in my title. Enough is enough. When is enough going to be enough? Does it have to be the child of a politician? Does it have to be the family member of a politician, of a senator, of a congressman or congresswoman, before you move forward on legislation that's being held up for years? We've got to get to a place where the human race becomes more important than our egos. It becomes more important than our pocketbooks. It becomes more important than our bank accounts. It becomes more important than a lobbyist. Now, I'm one that I put on my platform earlier, my timeline, that I'm looking for those that are proponents of gun laws and those that are in opposition of gun laws, because I believe we should cover both sides. I am one that I believe in the right to bear arms. However, I do not believe that every type of gun should be allowed in the households of Americans. I just don't believe that. People, you have people that talk about anarchy and the end times and all of this and how government will take over and all of this. Come on now. I'm not here to deal with all of that. What I do know is, and what we've seen over and over again, and watch this, not just in mass murders, but we experience it on our streets in America every single day. People are getting access to guns that should not be getting access to guns. Whether it's undercover, whether it's black market, we've got to get a hold of this. How can we send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine? And God knows that we need to help them. We need to be able to help those that may be in need or what have you. But how can you help others when you have problems that you need to solve here in America? I'm frustrated. I'm upset. I'm upset because we are not doing what we need to do to take care of our own. When I think about my daughter and her going to school, when I think about, they just had a death scare there at their school. And for me to hear about how the principal and others took it lightly. We can't take things like that lightly in today's society. Too much is happening in today's society. We've got to get to a point where it matters. Just because you don't have kids does not mean it should not matter to you. We all have a voice and we all have to use our voice. There is no reason in the world we should have to deal with what we're dealing with in our schools. We have to get to a place where we protect our little ones. We can't allow individuals to dictate what we do as it relates to gun control, as it relates to putting certain measures in place. We can't allow our pockets to dictate that. No, we have to look beyond the money, the financial gain for you. I'm speaking to the politicians, even our local politicians. What are you going to do about it? Here in Greensboro, what are you going to do about it to make sure that our children are safe? It's time for us to speak up. It's time for us to stop being numb to what's going on here in America. We're at a place now, we're at a place in time. We've been here, to be honest with you, for years. We've been here for years, but yet what happens is it becomes a cycle. Something happens. We have a mass murder. We have a police shooting or what have you. And for a few months, it's front page news. But then it gets put on the shelf. People begin to forget about what happened. The protests stop. It all slows down. And so what happens is now all of these issues are forgotten. Politicians feel like, we can put this on the side. We can table this because we don't have to answer for this right now. That's why we've got to learn to keep these issues on the forefront. We've got to learn to keep our politicians responsible, accountable to us when we're dealing with these issues. It's crazy to me. And I want y'all guys to share, if you want to come on with me, if you want to come on and talk about it, you can do that as well. I'll send you my link and you can just log in or what have you. But we've got to get to a point where the financial gain no longer outweighs humanity. It no longer outweighs our responsibility as Americans. We've seen it over and over again. We've seen it over and over again. I tell people all the time, y'all want to fuss about the political parties. Guess what? Neither political party has really done anything for us. When we look at it, and I'm going to talk even about the shooting in Buffalo. How can we move forward? What are the things necessary for us to do? I'm going to do a show and we're going to talk about gun control. We're going to talk about, the right to bear arms and how far should that right go? How far should that right go? Should that right be limited? Yes, there are now certain guns that you cannot purchase, but then there are others that even are military style guns that you can purchase, that the average American should not be owning, in my humble opinion. Why would you need a military style gun when you have something that is capable, whether you're a hunter, whether you go and kill game or whatever the case may be? There are guns out there that are not military style that you can use for that. And so there has to be a meetup. There's got to be a place of balance. We've got to get to a place where there's balance between the NRA and those that have suffered from school shootings, those that have suffered from mass murderers, those that have suffered from these mass shootings. There has to be a balance. And we've got to get to a place where we're listening to one another. It can't be, it's just all about myself. It's just all about my group. It's just all about what I feel, what I want. No. We see clearly that we're dealing with these problems, these issues in society. And watch this. We can't always peg it on mental illness. Unfortunately, some of the powers that be have tried to push this narrative. And yes, when you look at the statistics, I'm going to bring about a lot of that in the actual conversation when we do the gun control podcast. But yes, some of the statistics show that those individuals have had mental illnesses back in previously. But then that goes back to the actual background checks. That goes back to being very thorough and expanding background checks, expanding what we have in place now to even begin to check medical records, check their health records, and all of this. Why? Because that matters. That matters. Knowing a person's mental health issues, knowing their mental history, knowing if they've been psychotic or bipolar or whatever the case may be in previous encounters, knowing that information could be essential to saving lives. So then it brings about the other point or the other question that may arise. Well, at what point do we cross the line? At what point do we say or draw the line? At what point do we say, okay, it's a person's right to privacy versus protecting those that may be subjected to this individual? To be honest with you, I don't know what that answer is. Many of us may not know what that answer is. But what I'm saying is we have to come to the table and talk about it. How can you ever get a resolution to the problem if we never discuss the problem? If we never discuss possible resolutions? If we have one side that says we just want to put it on the table and forget about it, instead of saying, you know what, I want to deal with this. This is something that I want to deal with. Now, I'm going to show you this clip. I'm still on topic one. I'm going to show you this clip of Steve Kerr, and he's just as passionate. I was like, man, he feels exactly how I feel right now. He feels exactly how I feel right now. I was like, man, I couldn't have said it better. It's not about a basketball game. It's not about the NBA finals. It's not about sports. It's about lives, man. Lives. People are dying. Our children are dying. And I don't just bring this up when we have mass murders. In fact, even in the African-American community, one of the things that I deal with all the time is dealing with our crime rate in our community. But here's the reality. What people don't really bring out is that all communities have crime. But you never hear white on white crime. You never hear Asian on Asian crime. It's always a media narrative to push the black on black crime. So we've got to get to a place where we're coming to the table to discuss these things. Listen, I want you to check out what Steve Kerr had to say about this.
I'm going to talk about basketball. Nothing's happened with our team in the last 6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California, and now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check. 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
Wow.
It's outside the NBA on Facebook, and Shaq and Kenny and Charles, Ernie Johnson.
I mean, and let's be honest. Let's be real. My camera keeps trying to get my mic. Let's be honest. Let's be real. There are millions of Americans that feel the same way that Steve Kerr does. Millions of Americans feel the same way that he does. And it's here's the thing. We're not saying that because, you know, like I said, like I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, I am actually, I'm in agreement for pro-gun, you know, for us being able to carry guns. I'm in agreement with that. I believe we should have the right to protect ourselves. We should have the right to use guns for recreative activities and things of this nature. I'm in agreement of that. But what I'm not in agreement is we get to a point where certain types of guns we have access to. I think going back to some of the comments here, Wayne says, I myself am very pro-gun, very pro-Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The way I help is my entire family, even down to my 11-year-old daughter, shoots with me, and I teach them gun safety and gun respect. And that's great. That's being a responsible gun owner. That is definitely being a responsible gun owner. One of my homeboys, I love this dude, man, Antonio. He we always have great discussions, and he's going to be coming on for our gun control and right to bear arms podcast. And he says mental health standards to lawfully owning firearms already exist. An applicant is disqualified if he or she has been committed to a mental institution of an adjudicated mentally defective by a judge. And so my question would be, that's good, but shouldn't we go further? So there are so many people out here that may have had mental issues that are documented, but they may not have been deemed such by a judge, right? And so what are the standards for that? I mean, that's good that they have maybe that particular rule already in place, but how do we expand upon that to make sure that we're casting a wide enough net, if that makes sense? So that way we can catch those that may have issues that never came across the actual government hotline, if you will. They never were alerted about that. It's sort of like the same thing they did with 9/11, where they went back and saw how they had leaks in the system. And so those that had came over here that they never knew were here, it was because they didn't have access or a wide enough net cast in order to find those individuals, in order to keep tabs on those individuals. And so, sometimes, we often have people that complain about the actual shootings. I'm sorry, not shootings, but the actual regulations and stuff that we got to go through now with TSA and all that. And I say, you know what? I would rather be inconvenienced, right? Having to get to the airport a lot earlier, or having to go through, taking a little bit longer to go through the check-in and all that, and know that I'm protected a lot better than to have the opposite, right? And so sometimes we have to make those sacrifices. We have to make and say, you know what? I'd rather have this and deal with it, knowing it's an inconvenience, but it's an inconvenience I can handle because I know that I'm safer, as a result of that. I mean, we can clearly see how those actual things have helped us along the way. And so we've got to get to a place where we're coming to the table. As I said earlier, we're coming to the table. We're having a conversation. Now, the shooting in Buffalo, I mean, in the last, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, We've seen the Buffalo shooting. We've seen the Asian church shooting. And then we've seen the shooting today in Uvalde, Texas. And so even in the shooting in Buffalo, one of the things that disturbed me to a degree is the response of the church. We've got to, I often say, it's hard for me to understand how a church cannot be socially relevant, but also culturally relevant. Jesus dealt with all of the issues. He dealt with those culturally and socially that were dealing with certain issues. He corrected those that needed to be corrected. And he did it with a spirit of love. He dealt with the issues. So I often have a problem when I see preachers that don't want to deal with the things that their community is going through. How do you not address the issues? How do you not address poverty? How do you not address homelessness? How do you not address hunger? How do you not address these things when they're happening right in the community that you're building these monumental edifices within? We've got to get to a place where our community matters to us. I often say you got 17 churches in a 2-mile block in a community, and the community looks just as dilapidated today as it did 5 years ago. That should not be the case. And so we've got to talk out. We got to speak out on these things. We've got to use their platform. I have always said, I'm going to use my platform, regardless of how small or big it may be. I'm going to use my voice. Whatever I have at this moment, I'm going to use that to push the agenda forward, to push and make sure that we're dealing with the things that are right and that are fair. I did a series 2 years ago, I believe it was, on the color of love. And that series was based around the love of Jesus Christ and how God sent his son, not just for Caucasians, not just for Hispanics, not just for Asians, not just for African Americans. He sent his son for all of humanity, those that would receive him. One of the things that God gave me when he gave me the vision for Newman Life Church was to replicate on earth what heaven is going to look like. When we get to heaven, we're not going to be concerned about the color of skin. We're not going to be concerned about our brothers and sisters and the color of their skin or where they came from or what their culture is or, what their ethnic background is. No, we're going to praise and worship the name of the Lord corporately together. We're not going to be segregated like we are now. Sundays are the most segregated day of the week. We go to work together. We sometimes go work out at the same gyms and we eat at the same restaurants and all of this. But when Sunday comes, the vast majority of America drives to the black church. The black people drive to the black church. The white people drive to the white church. The Asian people drive to the Asian church. The Hispanic people drive to the Hispanic church. And I can imagine God is saying, this should not be. Yes, I separated the world through languages. Yes, I did this and that, but it was not intended for you to segregate yourselves when it comes to worship. And yet we have proponents that don't believe that we should disperse together. And so when we have these situations, I'm a firm believer that we as black pastors should not be the only ones consulting these or confronting these issues. I believe that we need our Caucasian brothers and sisters. I believe that we need our Hispanic pastors. I believe that we need all these other religions, all these other races and cultures answering the call and saying, you know what? This is not right. We need more Steve Kerrs of the world that will use their platform to speak out against the injustices. Not only against African Americans, but against all races, against all nationalities, against all age groups. When evil happens, it has no demographic. It's not concerned about what age you are. The evil mind just wants to conduct evil business. It wants to commit evil acts. And so we've got to get to a place that, guess what? Just because it didn't happen in your backyard, just because it didn't happen at your child's school, just because your church wasn't shot up, just because your race wasn't targeted, does not mean that you don't cry out and cry loud. Because what happens when it happens to you? Put yourself in the shoes of those that have lost loved ones. Put yourself in the shoes of those that deal with these racist acts or what have you. Now imagine if you had to go through that same thing. All it takes is having a morsel of empathy for humanity. I ask you again, where is our humanity? Where is the humane thinking, the humane sensitivity that we need to care for one another? Even as Christians, it's a shame that we have Christian sects that do not believe in fellowshipping with one another. They don't feel like that the issues that plague the African American community are issues that they need to deal with. They don't feel like they need to confront racism. Word of God tells us, how can you love a God that you've never seen before and not love your brother and sister that you see every day? That's counterproductive. That's backwards. That's backwards. Wayne says, there are some pastors, let me put this up. There are some pastors who are afraid to talk on certain issues because they may offend someone and it may cost them members leaving and not paying tithes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of pastors that are protecting their finances. They're protecting their income. Let's be real about it. They don't want people to leave. They don't want to talk about certain issues because they are dependent on the income of the church. They're dependent on the tithes and offering to pay them, to take care of them and all this. And they know if they talk about it, people are going to leave. They know if they talk about it, people may not tune in. It's one of the reasons that I always said, God, I want you to bless me so tremendously outside of the ministry that I never have to take a salary from the ministry. That's my desire. Why? Because I understand. I understand that when it comes to these issues, when it comes to being someone of standard, when it comes to being someone of integrity, someone that will stand up for right, and someone that will ridicule wrong, people don't like that. They don't like the truth. And so you may get those that won't be with you. You may get those that may leave you. You may get those that may ridicule you. They may talk about you. They may criticize you. They did the same thing to Jesus. And so when we stand up for something that's right, you know that that's going to happen. You already know that's going to happen. Jerry says, can't let the devil get you mentally and have you doing crazy things like killing innocent people or what have you. And that's absolutely true. But we see this and we know that because sin entered into the world through the garden, through Adam and Eve, we know that this is some things that we have to deal with now. Satan is roaring like a roaring lion. He's seeking those that he may devour, right? He's seeking to steal, kill, and destroy them. And so he starts, where does it start at? It starts in the mind. I tell people all the time, everything that ever happened in the world, Everything that you see, everything that was built in the world, it started with a thought. Think about that. It started with a thought. This iPhone started with a thought. These glasses started with a thought. Huh? This coffee mug started with a thought. Everything, good or bad, started with a thought. And so there are some other things that I want to talk about as well when we and I'm going to really dig into this. Excuse me, when we get into our gun control topic, because or the actual podcast. Excuse me. Because I think it's deeper than just the mental illness, like people like to say. I think it's deeper than just their thoughts. What got that individual to that place? What got them to the point of being emotionally and mentally open to doing the things that they do? Is it a coincidence that homes with a mother and father raising their children, those that the studies have shown, those that are mass murderers grew up with not in a great home? Is that by coincidence? See, we've got to have an honest conversation. We've got to have an honest conversation, and we have to stop blaming everybody else, and let's stop the buck where it should be. What are we doing in our homes? How are we raising our kids? Now we see in the society, kids can do whatever they want to do. They can say what gender they want to be. They can say whatever they want to do and all this type stuff. And then we wonder why our world is in so much chaos. We wonder why we're dealing with the things that we're dealing with. But yet we allow generation by generation by generation to have more freedom, more control, and all of this. At an early age, I'm not talking about like being adults, and I'm talking about at an early age, and impressionable ages. And so we have to get to a place where we understand, listen, we've got to do a better job even in our homes, in our families, our family structure. The schools have to do a better job. Society as a whole has to do a better job. We're no longer in a society where, it was the whole village that was raising the child. It was nothing for me to go to my neighbor's house, and if I got in trouble with my neighbors, they would discipline me. And then when I got home, I got disciplined even more by my mom and dad. Because it was a village that would raise the children. Now you can't say anything to anybody's child. You say something now, and the mother has a problem with it. It's like, but your child is the one talking back to you. Your child is the one cussing you out. And then you wonder, you're going and you're knocking on the pastor's door. You're knocking on the door of the governor. You're knocking on the door of the senator and all this when your child is in jail. Because you decided not to discipline them when they were growing up. You decided to give them all the freedom in the world. You decided, watch this, to be their best friend and not their parent. Oh, I know somebody about to click off right there. I know I just lost a few people right there. Because we shifted this responsibility. We shifted our accountability. Now we no longer feel like we should be accountable. I'm just bringing something up. I just want to have the real conversation. I want to have the real honest conversation. Let's not put the blame on gun control. Let's not put the blame on the NRA. Let's not put the blame all on the politicians. No, we have, and I say we, I'm talking to we as a society. We as the family unit have some burden to bear about this as well. We have some responsibility to bear about this as well. People don't like to hear this, but it starts at home. Charity starts at home. And so we've got to look in the mirror and say, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing to make sure that my child is a successful and productive citizen of the United States of America? right? What am I doing? What am I doing to make sure that my child stays out of trouble? Make sure that my child makes a positive impact on the community that they live in, on the communities that they visit, on the communities that they can take hold of and adopt and help others that may have been in the same position they were in and help them get to another place. We have to get to a point where we're not focusing all the time on ourselves, but we're focusing on others as well. You may be a great father, but have you reached out to another individual, that single parent mom that's having a hard time with that knucklehead boy? Have you thought about adopting that situation and say, you know what, I want to be a father figure in his life? Or that young lady that does not have a mother, but you are a great mother. Have you thought about, you know what, I want to take her under my wing. Show her how to be a great woman. Show her how to carry herself as a lady. We don't see this stuff anymore in society. It's no longer considered a standard to be a lady. Now you're considered to be okay if you all out there, if you're showing everything that God has given you. Well, I know we don't hear people talking like this anymore. I know we don't hear pastors talking like this anymore because they want to give you a feel-good message. They want to give you a feel-good conversation. But we've got to get back to the basics, the foundation. It's like, no, you don't have to be ratchet to find a husband. You ain't got to be ratchet and giving all the goodies away to find a man that will respect you. We've got to get to that place. Let me go back to the comments. Wayne says here, it starts at homes, and these parents who have kids that bully other kids or shoot up schools or other venues cannot say they did not see something wrong with their child before they committed the act. They knew something was wrong with their child, but chose to turn a blind eye. That's absolutely true. Wayne, that is so true, man. We've seen this in times past. We've seen in other cases when they've talked with the family, when they've talked with friends, when they've talked with loved ones, and they say the same thing. They said he wasn't acting himself. He just wasn't himself in the past few weeks. He just wasn't acting right. There was something weird about him. So my thing is, as a parent, how can you deal with that? How can you see the signs and not address it? It's one thing if you don't see the signs. It's one thing if they got that thing so tightly wrapped that you can't see it, but that's normally not the case. And so we've got to, I believe one of the things that we can do is we've got to get more training. We're now, Wayne, we're now dealing with a society that hasn't been trained on mental health, on mental illness. I talked about this on my mental illness podcast with Dr. Wright and Natalie Fuel. And I talked about how we now have to learn to deal with these things. It was taboo when I was growing up. 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, you didn't hear anything about mental health issues, especially in the African-American community, because we had gone through so much. We still are probably one of the toughest races out there. We deal with so much on a daily basis. And so we've gone through the struggle. We've learned how to survive. We learned how to come out on top. But even now, we see the death rate, the suicide rate of even African Americans rising, because we're no longer teaching them how to get through life. We're no longer teaching them life skills. We're no longer teaching them how to cope with pain, how to deal with their struggles, how to deal with disappointment. And so now we have a lot that are moving into depression. And you have many that claim depression, but have not even have the signs of depression. They feel like they're depressed because their friend depressed. And so you have all of these self-diagnoses going on. And so we've got to get back to having something that's standard, a standard way of saying, you know what? I've got to teach my kids this. I've got to teach my kids that. And the problem has been we've had so many kids raising kids. Wow. We've had so many kids raising kids. You a baby raising a baby. And so if your mama didn't teach you, your daddy didn't teach you, you're not going to teach your child. And so the cycle continues. It goes on and on and on and on. And so what are we going to do? One of the things we're going to talk about as it relates to gun control. Yay or nay? I'm a firm believer that I'm pro-gun. And again, I believe we should have that right. Right? We should have that right to protect ourselves and all this. But again, there possibly should be a limit to what type of guns that we can have. There has to be a happy medium. There has to be a level of balance that we come to and say, you know what? I'm willing to give up this so we can have this. But if we never do that, if we have both sides always banging heads and you have your side over here and this side over here, then we'll never get to a point where we can make ground on this. And so my thing is always about finding solutions. Finding solutions to the problem. Too many parents want to be their children's friends and they quit being the parent and teaching the children that there are consequences and repercussions to their action. Absolutely. There are consequences and repercussions to your actions. And what happens is because you've been a friend so long, then you see them going astray and you try to make the shift to being a parent. And they don't want to hear you because they can't take that from you as being a disciplinarian because you've never been a one to discipline them. You've never been one to hold them accountable. And so that's a fine line as well. I know many, especially when you have had a child at a young age and they're so close to you in age, it's easy to have that line skewed or blurred. But you have to understand that you're the parent. And your responsibility as a parent is to lead and guide them, right? It's to guide them into the right choices that they make. Now, when they get 18, when they get 19, when they get 20, they're on their own as it relates to that. But guess what? You still will lead and guide them. You'll still be leading and guiding them for the rest of their lives. For the rest of your life, you're going to be leading and guiding them. But if they make their own choices, then that's on them. Even with your guidance, there are going to be times where your children are going to do things that you don't agree with. That's just how this thing works. Even me as a pastor, I can tell you right now, unequivocally, there are things that my children have done since they've left my house or have gotten of age that I didn't agree with. Right? But guess what? I don't stop loving them. I don't stop guiding them. I don't stop leading them. In fact, I actually just introduced to them and implemented our family time again. And so family meeting. And so we actually have a family Sunday. It's actually going to be this Sunday coming up where all of my children come home. We talk about life. We talk about their plans, how things are going right now and all that, what's on their minds, what they're dealing with. And we have dinner and we just have fellowship and all that. Why? Because I want them to know that even though you're not here, I still want to play a vital part in your life. I want you to know you can come talk to me about anything. My wife and I have always had that open door policy. I don't care what it is. We've talked to our kids about sex. We've talked to our kids about homosexuality. We talked to our kids about gangbanging. You name it. Of course, we talk to them about the Bible and living a Christian life and Christian morals and values. We've done all of that because we want them to see, hey, I can go to mom. I can go to dad about anything. Now, will they come all the time? No. Sometimes they may feel like, oh, well, dad's too busy. No, I tell them I'm never too busy for you. If I'm not on a call, I'm not on the phone, just let me know. We can talk about whatever it is we need to talk about. But it's key. The key is being open. I always wanted to do that because I would rather teach my kids about the streets than the streets teach my kids about the streets. I would rather teach my kids about the world than the world teach my kids about the world. And so we've got to understand the shared responsibility that we all have in this. And we've got to do our part to make sure that we find a solution, in this, that we find a solution that will really work for the American people. It's just not about one sector. It's not about high class, middle class, and low class. No, it's about America. It's about us coming together. One of the senator today, I can't remember his name, but he made a statement when I thought about it and kind of began to research. It's true. We don't see these things in other countries. Yes, every now and then, but we don't see them at the alarming rate and that Americans see it. We see it here in the USA. And don't get me wrong, it's not like this is something that's happening every single month. But it's happening enough for us to say what? You say, you know what? We need to work on a solution for this. We need to make sure that this is a priority for our government to deal with these different issues. Wayne says, that's right, because the streets and the world are a very unforgiving place for our youth to learn lessons, because some of those lessons may cost them their lives. Wayne, more now than ever before. I was sharing with my kids. I said, my children, I said, it was nothing for me, a friend or a foe, to get in a fight or argument. We throw blows, and then the next day, we friends again. We live to tell about it. Now, it does not work that way. It does not work that way. You can pop off at the mouth all you want to, and you may not make it home. Because this generation, they don't care about hurting these. You know, they don't care about this right here. They'll take a 9mm and put a cap in you. And for all the new people, all the younger generation, a cap back in the day was bullet, in case you didn't know. I know y'all call it lie now. A cap is a lie, but it was a bullet back in the day. And so we've gotten to that place where society is no longer, we don't have patience. People don't value life like they used to. So they'll take a life as quick as they can. They don't see the ramifications of taking that life. They don't see the ramifications of children growing up without a father, children growing up without a mother, because they were killed in cold blood. But it starts at home. It starts with us raising children that love God. Yes, I'm going to say it. Love God. We're raising children in the admonition of the Lord. We're raising children in the church. We're raising children, and we're teaching them how to love, not hate. We're teaching them how to empathize, not ignore. We've got to get to that place. And I don't know. I don't think that any one person has all the answers. But that's the point in coming together to the table and really discussing these issues. Listen, I love you guys. We've been on about an hour or what have you. And I really want you to really think about and take an introspective look and say, what can I do to help? You may feel like you don't have a platform. You may feel like you don't have a voice. Listen, everybody has a voice. I don't care how big your following is on Facebook. You may only have 100 friends. Utilize your platform with those 100 friends, right? Utilize your platform so people can see where you stand. Your influence matters. Many times people are looking to see how you're going to respond. I get that all the time. People say, I was waiting for you to say something. I was wondering how you was going to feel. They even tag me and say, what do you think about this and that? Because they know that my only goal is to do what God has called me to do, is to win the world to God for Christ, but also to be a light in darkness. Also to be a light in darkness. You don't have to be a part of the kingdom for me to show you love, for me to empathize with what you're going through, for me to help you, right? We have to get out of that mentality that this is a social club. This is not a social club. This is a serving community. We serve our community. We serve others that are in need. We serve those through these conversations, making sure that our voices are heard, and at what level it may be. We want to utilize that. And that's one thing that you can always make sure you can always bank on with Pastor Jay. I'm going to utilize my platform to really call out the issues. We're living in a world now where they call wrong right and right wrong. But I still believe in right is right and wrong is wrong. I don't care what issue it is. I don't care. I was sharing with someone earlier today. I said the issue I have is many times we as Christians think that because we have a biblical worldview, we can't be relatable to the world. My God. Because we have a biblical worldview, we can't be relatable to the world. And so what I mean by that is, from our point of salvation, yes, that's correct. But what we have to understand is we live in the world. We are in the world, but not of the world. And so we still have to operate in this society. Word of God says, render to Caesar what is due to Caesar. Paul says first natural, then spiritual. He said the natural came before the spiritual. But many times we miss the natural. We miss being able to relate to people just as human beings. Ask them how they're doing. How's life going? What are the things that they're dealing with? You don't have to just meet somebody and just start throwing scriptures on them and all this for them to know that you're a holy roller, that you are saved, you're part of the kingdom. No, we have to learn how to relate to people. And through those relationships, we can win the world to Jesus Christ. We can win the world to God. When people see that you're just like them from a humanistic standpoint, they open up. They begin to open up and share with you. And all you need is an opportunity to share how God has changed your life, how God has done things in your life to win those to Christ. And so we've got to get to that place. We've got to get to that understanding in knowing that our position in Christ does not eliminate us from humanity. It does not eliminate us from relating to those that are going through, from empathizing with those that are going through. It does call us to a certain standard. It does call us to be people that are holy, that are living a standard. That's separate. It's not talking about us physically, but it's talking about our nature, our holy nature. God is a holy God, and he wants those that are holy to worship him, serve him. And so he don't want you out there cheating on your wife. He don't want you out there sleeping around before marriage. He doesn't want you out there, drinking and carrying on and making a spectacle in public. He doesn't want you out there, on drugs. No, that's what being separate, being holy and separate, a peculiar people. We're peculiar. So people look at us, they know something is different. So there's something different about that individual. He dealt with that situation differently. That's what it's about. And so we've got to make sure that we're doing our part to be here, to be leaders in our communities, to be leaders in Christendom as it relates to being a witness for Christ in our areas. Listen, I'm going to be coming back Wayne, he left another comment. He says, this is fire info, and I wish more of our youth could hear and heed messages like this, that it may impact their lives in a positive way. I wish so as well. And we're going to be working on some things, even with Pneuma Life Church and in conjunction with some other ministries locally here in our community, to really reach our youth and to really do some things to have symposiums, have different things where we bring on different speakers and really impact them and really share how to really get to the next level. I mean, there's so many things and so many areas that we can really discuss about how to really better our children's lives, how to better the lives of our youth, even from the school system. I think one of the fallacies of the school system is not teaching youth how to be entrepreneurs, not teaching them business. We do things like, we take health education or gym out of the school system, and now we see more than ever before our youth are obese and out of shape or what have you, and you wonder why. It's like, well, you just took out something that they did every single day. They made sure that they got physical exercise in, and so of course it all correlates. But we have to come and talk about these things, and get better resolutions as it relates to these issues. So I love you guys. I am hungry, ready to go get something to eat. It's drawing nigh, and I have some additional work I've got to get done. But remember, next week I'm going to be back, and I'm not sure if that's going to be the actual gun control podcast. I really want to get everybody on for that Tuesday. If not, it would definitely be the following week. And next week, we will definitely be covering another topic. But listen, like, share if you haven't already. If you've been on live, hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay for me. Like, share, comment, and also tag 3 people in this conversation. I believe this conversation is necessary and it's important for us to have so that we can move on as Americans here in the United States of America and really see how we can protect ourselves and our children and our families, because that's what it's all about. It's really about us being able to enjoy life and live life freely, but without the hesitation of being able to go places. And let me say this, and it's going to be my last thought. Don't allow what you see happening to have you operating in fear. Okay. Yes, we've dealt with the school shootings, we've dealt with the mass murderings and all that. And but guess what? We still have to live life, regardless of how you live it. We've got to live life, and because life has to be lived out, why live it in fear? Don't stop going to the grocery stores. Don't stop going to the movie theaters. Don't stop sending your kids to school. Don't stop doing the things that we've come accustomed to doing. Just remain vigilant and aware, even in those circumstances. Be cautious and understanding what's going on around you. So we've got to make sure that we don't allow these things to cripple us and to have fear, false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And so we go through life in fear. We don't want to leave our homes because we're afraid that we may get caught in a mass murder. We're afraid that we may have to deal with this and that. No, live your life. Live your life. I'm a firm believer that God will protect us. God will, His will protect us. And I believe that in spite of it all, in spite of the murders that we see, in spite of the shootings and things that we see, we can allow that to grip us in fear. We just have to trust God. We have to trust that we're going to do things better and just enjoy life, live life. Yes, these things happen because of sin entering into the world. We're going to be subjected to these types of things. The evil of the world. There's so many evil people for no reason. People that just have hate built up in them for no reason. You ask them, why do they hate an individual? And they can't tell you. They can't give you a valid reason. And so we have to make sure that we don't allow that to dictate how we live our lives. Okay, we have to make sure we don't allow that to dictate how we live our lives. And I'm excited even about the conversation, about getting into the conversation, even on my platform. I'm excited about getting into the conversation and hearing both sides and see how can we come together with some solutions. And then we can push our actual politicians, our government, to make sure and mandate and impact and implement those resolutions that we have, so that this world could be a better place for us, our children, and all those that become a part of this great nation that we call America. I love you guys, and I pray that that God is moving in your lives. I pray that God is blessing you, and that you are excelling in everything that He's required of you, everything that He's asked you to do, and His will for your life. That's the main thing, is that you are in His perfect will and not in your permissive will. I love you guys, and I will see you guys on next week. God bless.